Market Prospects, delivering timely information and education to prairie farmers for over 25 years. Market Prospects is brought to you by the University of Saskatchewan's Department of Bioresource Policy, Business and Economics, and these sponsors. Log on to marketprospects.usask.ca to view past programs and for information on upcoming programs.
Grain transportation woes are very much on the minds of Canadian farmers. This week on Market Prospects, we gain the American perspective on grain transportation issues. Joining us is Terry Whiteside, who's with Whiteside and Associates from Billings, Montana. He's also the chair of the Alliance for Rail Competition. Great to have you on Farmgate.
Good to be here. Thank you.
Right off the top then, sir, please provide us with a brief summary of what's happening with the movement of grain from U.S. farms in the Midwest to U.S. ports and what some of the issues are.
Fascinating question, because in Canada we're seeing a service meltdown. In the U.S. we're seeing a service meltdown, but not for exactly the same reasons. And so what we have is that in the northern tier states, the grain states that are adjacent to Canada, we have lots of maintenance that started in the spring, moved into the fall. Then we had lots of problems with cold weather, and they had corn crops, and they had all these other things. The problem is, the prospect is, that's not going to get solved right away. And we're talking, maybe we're not having the problems you're having with moving the current harvest. We're having problems with just all raw rail capacity in the States. So I think what we're going to see is that we have like in the U.S., if the Canadians try to move down there into Portland, you have longer cycle times, but the more important problem is there any capacity down there? Right now there's capacity in Portland, but it probably will not exist for very long.
You touched on this a bit, but what are some of the similarities and differences that you see in the current situation in grain movement in Western Canada, and what are the underlying reasons for those?
Well, the similarities are, you all have I shouldn't say you all up here, you have a two railroad system, a duopoly. We have a duopoly in the West in the United States. The similarities are, we're both inland a long way. We're both trying to get to tidewater. Most of the crop in the northern tier states goes into export. So the similarity is that we're all trying to move on a rail system that's very congested, and we have to get to some ports. The nice thing about the U.S. is they have several deep water port accesses, which don't have a lot of congestion going into them yet, but we have inland congestion. The differences in Canada are that you have congestion both in the country, because you have this huge crop, huge carryover, and you're having lots of problems with port access.
From a farmer's perspective then, what is an appropriate regulatory framework for moving grain, given the market power of railroads, especially here in Western Canada?
The framework, we have to look at a couple of things. One, I think we have to recognize that we need to open access, competitive access on the systems. Ultimately, if we can do that, then we need to get a lot more transparency on what's going on in the system. We have to know how many cars are there, how many cars behind we are. They're talking 60, 70,000 cars here. And then we have to look at, how do you get the communication going that will solve the problems? And that, whether that's regulatory oversight or something like that, we'll have to see. But I think generally those two things will start to at least look at and alleviate the problem.
How and when are farmers and grain companies' interests aligned regarding rail transportation of grain?
If you look at the systems that we have, the grain companies make their money by having the price that they paid for it versus the international market. The farm producer has to get value from his grain. The two come together, the two views come together when you have lack of rail capacity. So as the rail capacity becomes more and more of an issue, then you're going to see the issues or the goals and the ambitions of the two align. But they make money differently in the marketplace, and that's where they separate.
Last question. What are the short and long-term potential opportunities and challenges for moving Canadian grain into the United States?
Grass looks greener. Always looks greener on the other side. The real issue we have in the Northwest is that Portland, number one, the turns are much longer. So it's going to take a lot longer to get the cars back. In a car capacity shortage problem that you have now, they're not going to want to see those cars run away on them. On the other hand, you've got Portland has been lowered to 43 feet. They've got more room. They can actually load full Panamax vessels now. But what's going on is they're going to be shipping a lot more coal and oil into those markets in the next 4 to 5 years to 10 years. They're talking right now. If we look at all of our grain products that move into the Pacific Northwest, we have about 38 to 40 million tons. They're talking about somewhere between 70 and 170 million more tons that will be put on top of this to get into the market. That will tie up the capacity very significantly.
Great information. Thanks very much for coming on Farmgate.
Well, and I enjoy being up here. Thank you.